So we'll call the November 15th meeting to order. We'll note that Alderman DeLucia is excused from today's meeting. The October 18th minutes were sent out. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the October 18th, 2021 meeting.
I'll make a motion to accept, approve the minutes from the October meeting.
I'll second that. Oh, there's Brian.
Yeah, I just got to keep an eye out for admitting people. That's what
I got let in. Woohoo!
All right. And do we have any citizens for citizen comments? No citizens for citizen comment? No? Oh, Sheila, you're here for new business. Okay. Well, since we have no citizens for citizen comments, we'll move on to old business for Public Works project updates. Pat?
Okay. So actually with the Sherman Street Bridge, we kind of, I hope we didn't hit a snag, but it seems like the permitting might be somewhat of an issue. Since we don't have the permits in place yet. We're supposed to be advertising this month. The goal was for the 24th to put it out to bid, but we're going to have a meeting with the DOT tomorrow to see if that's still prudent, given the fact that we don't have all of our environmental permits in hand. And the DEP is, after sitting on it for 8 months, they just requested additional information just last week. So when we provided that information, but it doesn't bode well for getting an approval from them expeditiously, like we had, we had hoped that we would have permits in place at this time. So that isn't an official snag yet, but it looks like it could possibly be.
Now, when you talk about a snag for that one, are you, how far back would it set you if you had to delay going out for a bid? Just asking.
Yeah, well, that's a good question because it's such a time sensitive thing. We have to really, we're going to need to hit the ground running in April of whatever year we start it. Probably it's not a project that you want to start in July because it's 2 full construction seasons. So it is kind of critical that we figure that out in the next, so that we can get it out to bid and have an award with a start date for April 1. You know, if not this year, it's possible we could miss a whole year if we don't hit that target.
Okay.
So for our next annual paving, we just finished up last week. So we finished with about 5.5 miles for the year. And we also did a couple of small streets in-house in the last month. We did Freeman, and we also did Burton off of Route 12. Those are like too small for the main paving contractor, so we did them with our in-house crews. Everything else, New London Turnpike is pretty much we're still waiting. The city submitted our man hours that we think it'll take to design, so we're still waiting for Benesh's, and it's still basically in negotiations for that. The Grant Mill building that has been completed. I don't know if you want to just summarize that, Brian, since you were out there.
Yep. Yeah, they finished up earlier this month. The last piece of the puzzle was the erection of the steel. They capped off the walls with a concrete cap all the way around. I'd recommend anybody go by and take a look at it. It's you get a pretty nice view of it right now. But they did complete that, and we've stabilized the site, and they are all finished out there.
So, and we also have a request for proposals out for engineering work to complete the park part of it. Now that the demolition's done. So we open those, I think it's November 30th, and then we'll be bringing a consultant on board to do the design of that park area. Dunham Street, Brian, you want to update us on that?
Yep, Dunham Street, they're about to start with tree clearing tomorrow. They're getting, it's late enough in the season that we don't necessarily want them to tear up the road and start working on drainage or anything at this point. But they are preparing to do the tree removal and anything else that they can before it gets too cold and they shut down for the winter. It really, I mean, the whole project is, the majority of it is the 3,700 feet of granite curb that no one has right now. And it's the same situation like we talked about before. That was the delay for the roundabout project. And they're gearing up for a early spring start as soon as the weather breaks.
So, and we completed the new roof on the group pavilion there in October, and started some of the design work for the new expansion of the disc golf, the monies that were in the new playscape that were approved with the ARP funds for Mohegan Park. And that's about where we stand. You know, we're getting ready for winter now, pretty much. Leaf cleanup, a lot of leaf cleanup. We start the citywide leaf collection next Monday.
Anybody have any questions for Pat or for Brian?
Nope.
Okay, and just as a follow-up to our last meeting, the lots on Hunter's Road are going to go to the council tonight, to go to Avalonia. Probably go to commission on the city plan first and then come back to the council. But that's the plan there. And I don't know if we ever discussed Robbins Court, but that I think will be sold tonight as well. I don't remember if that was on our list for property dispositions.
I think that might have been several meetings ago.
Yeah, we have talked about it.
You
Yeah.
guys clean up, right?
It's being sold tonight, so.
Yep.
And also now on 98 Washington Street, we have, the person has left the building, so to speak. They are out of that, and we changed the locks today, I believe, on that building. So
How much stuff is left inside, Pat?
I haven't been in it personally, but the guys say there's not a tremendous amount, but mostly trash type stuff, cardboard, the empty water. She had a bunch of milk jugs that she brought water to the property with to flush the toilet, I think. I'm not sure, but so there's a bunch of water jugs and cardboard, and it's not anything like the other Robbins Court was, but
Right.
I guess the basement still has a good bit of junk in it too. So we'll probably do a little bit of clean out there. And we're also, Deanna, she hasn't joined the meeting, but Deanna and I are working on an RFP for that.
Yeah, just don't want to throw out anything that looks, oh, there's
I'm
Deanna.
here, I've been here, I'm multitasking.
Yeah, we just don't want to throw out anything that looks like it could be,
Yeah, part of the building.
molding or,
Yeah, right. Got it. Yeah. In fact, with the doorways, we're so thick. They're like 2¼ inch thick doors, the original doors. So the lock sets are like special lock sets. So we couldn't buy new lock sets. So we took the old lock sets off and we're getting them newly keyed because of the unique feature. We didn't want to drill any new holes or anything into the doorways. So, but yeah, so we are being cognizant of the fact that it is a historic building, and we're being careful in that way.
excellent. Okay, any other old business that we need to discuss? Deanna, you have anything? No, okay. So moving on to new business, the Sister Mural, Norwich Sister Mural, and Sheila Hayes is with us. Did everybody get the email that was sent out earlier today, or maybe what, yeah, I think it was today.
I think I said it to the committee on Friday,
Oh, Friday.
but then it might have went out to other council people this morning, I think, maybe.
So since we have the resolution on the agenda, I had the material sent out to the rest of the council members, the city manager and whatnot, so that they have the information.
Okay, so Sheila, if you want to go ahead.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for having the System Mural project on the agenda. We have been working, I think I first came to the committee back in May to get the preliminary approval pending final design for the wall on the Market Street garage. And since then, we've been working with about 20 members from the community, including our schools, many of our volunteer groups, some of our elected officials as well, to come up with a design around the original, staying with the original theme. We expanded it somewhat at the request of some of the youth and other volunteers in the city that joined the group. But the central theme is still around freedom, still around civil rights and human rights, and highlighting significant people, places or events that we felt were important in relationship to the city of Norwich and or the people who currently live here. And so what you have presented in front of you, so we expanded it back. We found out in our research that there were actually two people who had an important role in the American Revolutionary War from this area. And one was Cato Meade, and the second person was Samuel Ashbow. Samuel Ashbow actually died. He was a Native American Indian from the Mohegan tribe. He actually was killed in the American Revolutionary War. And Cato Meade was the first African American in the American War, in the American Revolutionary War, who died west of the Mississippi. But they were both from this area. We then moved to which the original focus was around David Ruggles and the Underground Railroad and the fight to help enslaved Blacks receive their freedom. And we continue on with Aaron Dwight Stevens, who was from Norwich as well, who was hung down at Harper's Ferry, fighting on the side of the abolitionists. You will then see a representation of the 29th Colored Regiment to show the military involvement. We then move to bring it more current to the civil rights period, with Virginia D. Christian being the first woman of color, first person of color actually elected to the Norwich City Council. She was also one of the first members and supporters of the Norwich NAACP, as well as she was appointed, she was the first African American woman appointed to a statewide office, statewide board, the technical colleges at that time. And then we come to the human rights person who we felt that displayed his interaction to bring to light what was happening to children from a global standpoint, and represent the human rights side of where we see a lot of our, I'll say, people who have come to Norwich in the past 20 years, whether it was for employment or whether they were fleeing oppression or just looking for new opportunities, and coming to the area and settled in Norwich. And so that is really the goal that we believe, that we worked with the artists. There are two artists One is he's a native of Haiti. He lives here in Norwich. He has presented work. He has work that is currently down at Otis Library. And the other woman is Amilda, who is originally from Nigeria, and she has over 20 years of experience of doing public murals. She is the person, if you read this weekend about the Manchester dedicated, the murals, they just dedicated a mural up in the Manchester area. She's worked on several across the state. And so we feel confident that we have two artists who have the experience and the knowledge working with Connecticut murals. And they have been in existence since 2015, I believe, Connecticut murals, that we have the experience with people who know how to do public art and murals specifically, and involve the community in the process. I will stop there and open up for any questions or any thoughts.
I have a couple of questions for
Sure.
you. You didn't mention Frederick Douglass, who is on the,
Right. Okay. So Frederick Douglass, James Lindsay Smith, they were two enslaved Blacks that David Ruggles helped to gain their freedom. Frederick Douglass was actually David Ruggles actually mentored Frederick Douglass in the newspaper business
right,
as
but,
well. Go ahead.
sorry, I see the connection to most of these people to Norwich. I don't know what the connection is of Frederick Douglass to Norwich.
Just that he is one of the prominent figures that we know through the Underground Railroad, but the fact that David Ruggles actually helped to free Frederick Douglass, and then he ended up mentoring him in the newspaper and the publication business.
Okay. And then the last gentleman, Singh Caldra, what
Right.
is his connection to Norwich?
So it was looking at someone who had a purpose when it came to human rights, and I will tell you, we did seek out to see if there were other individuals who had who in their country, and I will take Haiti for one of the areas. We did reach out to see if there was somebody in the Haitian community or someone in the Latino community that had a positive image within their own community when it came to fighting for human rights. Unfortunately, what we were told by a couple of people that we had engaged in is that unfortunately some of the people that are national in recognition are the very people that the country people had been fleeing, and that they did not view them in a positive light. And so this gentleman is a gentleman who brought to light about the children being missing in the Middle East under the human rights and as a human rights violation back in the 1980s.
Well, I'd like to see Hiram Bingham on the
Okay.
mural. A man from Salem who, through his connections through the United Nations, helped to save 2,500 Jewish children.
Okay.
He was from Salem, Connecticut. He has a much better connection than this gentleman does. You want to talk about human rights and civil rights.
Okay.
Hiram Bingham certainly, I think, was somebody prominent in this area. And his work is well known.
Okay. I will assume that there is a photo or an image of him.
Oh,
As
absolutely.
readily. Okay. Okay. And I wouldn't, and I know the community, the committee would not be opposed to adding someone, adding additional person into the photo.
Right. But I'd like to see if we're making this connection to Norwich or this area. I'd like to see people who are from this area who did something to move human rights or civil rights forward. And like I said, I just don't get the connection, and I'm sorry, the light keeps going off in my office. I just don't get the connection of the last gentleman to Connecticut, to the Norwich area at all. I'm sorry.
Okay, we're in looking at representation from a global, that we are a very diverse community, connecting Norwich from a global area. And like I said, it was difficult to try to find other to find people who currently represent some of the diversity in the area, who would be considered noteworthy people, even in their own countries, to be representative of some of our more recent people who have come here.
So
Go ahead.
I think if I'm getting what you're trying to say is the fact that with civil rights, although it's the part of wanting to recognize those prominent individuals that have made strides here in this community, that the idea of civil rights or certain issues within civil rights have been brought to light at a global or national level by other individuals that have had an impact on some of our communities here that have resided or made Norwich their home, and have helped them to then help advocate and become involved in kind of fighting the advocacy in those areas, such as the gentleman.
Correct. And so I mean, that's what global cities, that was my understanding in talking to Suki, is one of the connections that global cities was to look at Norwich and celebrate the various cultures and ethnicities of people from where they came from to why they're here in the city of Norwich, and to share and expand that opportunity. You said you had a couple of questions,
Well,
Stacy?
actually,
Yeah, I think I asked a couple.
Okay.
I was just curious, you got like there's a police logo and a fire department logo, but there's no like city of Norwich, like just general city of Norwich logo or something. I was just,
Right. So where you see is there's a rose at the end.
Mhm.
Okay. And one of the cautions, and it's a person, honestly, that talked to Deanne about, and I apologize, I didn't get to her earlier, is that we did not know as a committee if there were limitations as to logos, symbols, those type of attributes, because I even cautioned the committee that we may even be asked to remove the badges of the fire and police. But I didn't have a chance, Deanna, to reach out to you to see if we had any restrictions.
There's none from in our regulations about restrictions for logos, but you would just need to make sure that you were approved by whatever department was authorizing them. I know that the city clerk does not want to use the city logo that says the seal of the city of Norwich. You can't put the seal up specifically, but we do have a logo without saying the seal of the city of Norwich. But from my standpoint, no, as long as the police and fire were okay with using that and have approved that, there's nothing in our zoning regulations about that.
Okay. So we can use the we can use the non-seal for the city of Norwich to represent the city of Norwich.
I would say yes, but you just want to pass it by whoever this committee is, or, you know, or city manager's office. But I know
Okay.
the clerk doesn't let the language that says seal of the city of Norwich, you can't put on anything.
Okay. I knew that there were some restrictions. I just didn't know what restrictions. So that is why we stopped there with and just put the rows up, because I thought I was treading and I didn't want to lead the group down the wrong way to put symbols and logos up without really having a clear understanding.
So just my other comment would just be that although it's drawn in a rectangular manner, the images on the right-hand side are going to actually be quite compressed. I would, because the walls gets quite a bit shorter. Just want to point that out,
Yes, and that's why we tried to tried to show that the wall would go down, and we'll work with how to put the images in there. But that is part of, when you are working with a wall that's not of
rectangular.
rectangular. Those are challenges that we'll have to overcome.
I guess maybe that's one reason why you had one top and bottom images on the far left-hand side, because you had enough room to do that. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Sheila, in regard to the logos for the fire department and the police department, are you planning on using the logos from the 5 volunteer departments as well?
Are their logos different than each one has a different logo?
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, so there's the 5 volunteers.
Would you just reach out to the 5 chiefs to get the proper logo?
Right, but we'd have to get their approval, which we'll have to get from the police and fire department. We'll have to get approval for any logo that we put up, is what I understand.
Right, but I think it's getting too busy with all these logos in there. Again, what's the connection with the logo to the city, other than that's the police department?
Well, under civil rights and human rights, which is obviously, it's definitely under the civil rights portion of it, that we have seen since the 60s. We have seen efforts made in the city. And like I said, and that was even why the rose was put in to represent the city. We have seen efforts and progress made in the area of civil rights and human rights. So it's meant to be as a complement to the city, not to ignore that the police departments, the fire departments, as well as the city itself, has started addressing and implementing some of the concerns that have been raised throughout the years when it comes to civil rights and human rights.
Okay. Any other questions for Sheila?
I'm just going to state again, and I maybe voiced it before, but I'm just only concerned about the conditions when you apply it. I don't know, if I was making the decision, I wouldn't want to put it up in weather that was less than, this cold, basically. I don't know, that maybe they're saying they can do it, but my experience with concrete is that once the weather gets pretty cold, I mean, I think you might be better off waiting until spring to actually put it up. Just so the longevity of it works out better and you have less problems, I would think. That's just my engineering background speaking.
And Pat, I will assure you, I have asked the artists as well as Connecticut Mirrors. I've expressed that to them. I've asked them several times. What they have stated back is that they believe that with as long as that they can paint on days that are 45 degrees or above. And the real painting is going to be getting the primer and that base coat, that background coat that's up. Most of the other, and this is what this poly tab, that's done indoors. The painting on the poly tab is done indoors. And then that is put up on the concrete. And that, they said, can be done in December or colder weather, that the weather isn't, and they've assured me that they've been doing this since 2015, and that the process, that there wouldn't be that the weather conditions wouldn't impact putting that up. So.
Okay.
I mean, they're the we believe we've contracted with the experts. I've expressed this. I've told them that was a concern that you have, that they have assured us that.
But even when the temperature gets up to 45 degrees, it doesn't usually stay that, then it cools off quickly. As soon as the sun goes down these days, it cools off quickly. So I don't know. 45 degrees is probably okay, but then it usually drops off pretty quickly. I don't know. I just want to see you be successure is all,
Right. And so don't we. And like I said, that's the assurance that they've given us. And that's, obviously why we're coming earlier in November. To try to take advantage of what, I did look over the next couple of weeks. We will actually have some 50 and 60 degree weather. And if they can take advantage of those days, it obviously is more beneficial.
Okay.
The project.
Yeah.
And Sheila, you understand that this will have to go to Deanna's office for her approval, because this is in the Chelsea district.
Yep, so I looked at it, and I don't get into the completely minutia of like what exactly it says, since we should look at it from a global standpoint, kind of looking at it. The only thing my comment would be, I think the red is too bright. I think that the background, if you go with the blue, I think that's much better and more muted. And then you really do see the photo, the pictures that you were trying to show. I think just the red was is just too glaring from the garage.
Agreed. I'm like Pat like the blue. I even hope it comes out lighter.
Yeah.
And so, right. So what was explained to me is that when they were doing the colors, because we were trying to go through getting the red to be more pinkish and the blue to be more lighter, and depending on what computer we were looking at, the colors weren't coming out. So we just said, try to show the difference between the pink and the blue, and then, but like I said, some of this is subject to change. And they made us aware that not all colors are available, and some may be more difficult than others.
Stay on a blue tone. I wouldn't get into the red tones or oranges or yellows or anything like that.
Stay with the blue. Okay.
Yep. I think but that's my only comment as far as the context of it.
Okay.
I'm gonna, this committee is considering that, so I'm going to, defer to them on that specifically and what's on there. Again, just check with, if you're gonna use a logo of the city, you need to make sure it's not the seal. But otherwise, we allow for murals in our downtown with just a review. And that's to make sure that there's no, swear words or anything that's, obnoxious or hurtful. So that's really what I'm looking for, is anything like that, and it's not, so.
And
Thank
I, think in the resolution, if there are any changes, and put the language in there to consult between both you and Pat on any slight changes or anything that may need to come up.
I'm comfortable with that. Like I said, as long as, I think if we can keep, the color scheme and the size and, and not change location, I think we're good from that standpoint, from a planning perspective.
Okay. And one more idea that came to mind, Sheila, while I'm sitting here,
Sure.
is a Norwich native who is recognized as an international human rights activist for South America, was Rabbi Marshall Meyer. Grew up here, he's buried here, but he was an international human rights activist when he was living in Argentina he was there 60s, 70s until the early 80s.
Okay.
Y-E-R.
Meyer. Okay. My question is, to you, Stacy, are you looking for both of them, both their images to be?
Well, I was trying to make the connection back to Norwich or this area. And I looked up each one of these individuals, and I understand Cato Mead, he was born in Norwich. Samuel Ashbo was a member of the Mohegan tribe, died at the Battle of Bunker Hill. Obviously, David Ruggles. James Smith. Okay. Aaron Stephen lived in Norwich. I see those connections. I knew Virginia Christian. My mother worked with her on the Board of Education, along with Henry Randall, in the 70s. And that's why I was lost about what's this connection to the gentleman from India. I didn't see his connection. And I was thinking of others who were human rights activists who came from this area. One being Hiram Bingham, and the other being Rabbi Marshall Meyer. Because you're jumping from, you go from the 1700s to the 1800s, and then jump to the present day, the 1960s, 70s, 80s with Virginia Christian. There's a big gap of 130 years in there. So I was trying to think of somebody who was a little bit earlier than Virginia. Bingham was in the 30s and 40s with the Holocaust. Rabbi Meyer was in Argentina and South America in the 60s and 70s and 80s, the early 80s. So I was trying to think of those connections to this area. And the Bingham family is still, while they live in Salem, Dr. Bingham was a well-known physician here in Norwich for many years. That was his father.
Okay. So, no, that's why I was asking, are you okay with us adding these two?
Well, I don't know what the committee wants to, will decide, but I was trying to find a connection to Norwich or this area, and those two names in mind. And both of them are internationally recognized for their rights activities.
The rabbi I hadn't heard of, Mr. Bingham I had heard of. So and I do know, and if you were to look at one of the original documents that that I had sent you, I think in October, I do know that the period of the Holocaust was a period that was mentioned. At that point, nobody had come forward with a name. So I know they won't have have an issue in that area because it was mentioned. It's not like a new introduction of a person. No one just came forward with a name to say, let's consider having this person. And you're doing that for us. So I appreciate that.
All right. Well, like I said, I was trying to, if the connection is to Norwich in this area,
Yeah,
those two are absolutely connected to Norwich in this area.
thank you.
Okay, is there anything else for Sheila? And Pat, you've got a list of all of the supplies that they're going to be using, and you're okay with the type of paint, primer, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's all the right outdoor type paints and materials. It's, I guess, these people have done it before, so, yeah,
I can tell you, Pat, they use Sherwood Williams.
yeah,
Grade.
right. We were
Yeah, I
talking,
mean, that wasn't on here, but I do know it's Sherwood Williams grade that they use, and that's supposed to be one of the best, if not the best, for mural painting. And I guess there's paint that's specifically for outdoor mural painting that Sherwood Williams makes.
yeah, we use Sherwin-Williams for the line work, the parking spaces and, handy crosswalks and things like that. That's the paint that we use for that, so.
Question, Stacy, do we need to vote favorable recommendation to the council for the mural?
Deanna, do you need something formal for us? Or do you need to do something formal for Sheila? No,
I review it when the zoning permit comes in. It's kind of like it's supposed to be a zoning permit. We'll waive the fee on it. It's just so we have documentation about it, that it went up. So I will just sign off on it. So I'll just send that to you. It's no big deal. It gives us just a place for me to sign off. Okay.
okay, thank you.
Nothing significant.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, because we can make a favorable recommendation to the council. Pat, do you think this has to go to plaques and monuments or not? That we've vetted this?
I think since you're on that committee too, I think this would be, I think this would be enough.
Okay,
And the whole council is going to end up voting on it too. So.
right, yes. Okay, so then we'll need a motion to send a favorable recommendation to the council that the Norwich Sister Mural Project move forward.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second the motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none. The motion is approved, and we'll send that to the council. Is there any other new business need to be brought before thank you, Sheila.
Thank you.
Any other new business that we need to discuss at this meeting this afternoon?
Not to my knowledge.
Brian is smiling. No?
Nope.
Okay. So we have no other new business. Any other business or anything that we need to discuss for the next meeting?
The only question that I have is I know FEMA, they've, of course, the declaration and whatnot has come through. Have you guys been working with them as far as getting around properties and different things of that sort? Or is that more of the fire department?
Brian, I'll let you answer that, but Brian's been involved with some of that.
Yeah, I was there with them the first tour of the initial 20 houses that they determined were the most hard hit from Ida, and there's been a couple. FEMA's been here a couple more times since then. I know Mark Waters has been dealing with them primarily, but we're just working to help out and help quantify the amount of damage that's been done and prioritize, I guess, what's going on. But Mark has been working more directly with the FEMA people than we have.
Okay, and then the only other thing that I have is knowing, we had that wonderful rainstorm on Friday.
Yeah.
The downpour, and I know that still it's that time where leaves and whatnot are covering, the storm drains and things of that sort. So,
Yep.
Just a kind of a caution to keep up on some of those things. I happen to actually be down in Stonington while the wonderful tornado took place on Saturday. So I understand the work that you guys have been going through when it comes to helping with the trees and getting debris and things up. So kudos to your crews on a lot of the work that's been going on.
Thank you.
Okay, any other new business or any other business? If not, I'm to entertain a motion to adjourn at 5:45.
Or
4:47.
I'm sorry, 4:45.
I'll make that motion.
I was gonna keep you all here for another hour. Okay, I'll second the motion to adjourn. Anything else? Thank you very much. Have a
so I
good,
guess we're gonna meet at the same time and everything. I guess it could be a slight congratulations to both of you on your reelection and Joe too. So the committee could stay intact, I imagine, but I'm not, we don't know that, but it could very well. And, hope to see you all again next month.
All righty.
okay, thank you, Pat. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Deanna. I think we're done, Leon.
All right, that's me now.
Oh, you